It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Let's get out of here. Aye. Hello, everyone. It's Aaron from God a Minute. I took a lot of time here, and I drew this chart here. It's not chart. It's the Hebrew text in Genesis 38. So bear with me as I just share with you this awesome picture. This is about 1,000 Hebrew letters. And this is such a beautiful thing that this really needs to be presented in this way. I did show this in a video before, but seeing it in this way, you're going to understand the pattern better. So the Hebrew was the original text of the Old Testament, and we had this lineage in Genesis 38. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this and explain what this is, but let me start you off with the book of Ruth, and then we're going to bounce back here. So in Ruth, this is right here at the end of Ruth, we have, let's see if I can zoom in a bit. Right at the end of Ruth, it says, moreover, let me just go from verse 11, Ruth 4:11. And all the people who were at the gate of the elders, we said, we are witnesses, the Lord make the woman who is coming to your house like Rachel and Leah. The two built the house of Israel. And may you prosper in Ephrath and be famous in Bethlehem. May your house be like the house of Perez. Remember that name, Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. Remember that as well. Because of the offspring which the Lord will give you from this young woman. Okay, so Boaz took Ruth, remember those two names, and she became his wife. And when he went into her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Let's skip down to the bottom and see the genealogy. It says here that, and they called his name Obed, and his father was Jesse, the father of David. So now this is the genealogy of Perez. Perez begot Hezron. Hezron begot Ram. Ram begot Abinadab. Abinadab begot Nahshon, and Nahshon begot Solomon. Solomon begot Boaz. Boaz begot Obed. Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David. So Boaz, Obed, Jesse, David. Remember Perez and Tamar. So the book of Ruth is pointing us to Genesis 38. Okay? The book of Ruth is pointing us to Genesis 38. And the book of Ruth is the book that they read on the Feast of Weeks, on the evening of the Feast of Weeks, which is a 49-day count. So let's go over to here now. And this is the Hebrew letters of Genesis 38. And I'll zoom in just a bit here. And I'll put this over here. This is Judah. This says Judah right here, just in a normal plain text. And this says Tamar in the normal plain text. But the thing about what we found here is every 49 letters, it spells Boaz. I'll get a ruler here, just so you can see it. So that spells Boaz. And I'll show you this first. If you need the Strong's numbers, here they are. So H116, I'll make this a little bit clearer for you. H1162 is Boaz. H7327 is Ruth. H5744 is Obed. And the root of that would be H5647. And then H3448 is Jesse. H1732 is David. So that's what, if you want to check it out. But essentially, this chart is showing us the genealogy that's listed in the book of Ruth in chronological order. Every 49 letters and every name is spelled backwards. So here's Boaz. And this is from Genesis 38, 9 through 28. I just took a clip of it. This is about a little bit over 1,000 Hebrew letters, I believe. Every line has 49 letters. So this is Boaz backwards, right here. Then we have Ruth right here. So every 49 letters, it spells the next letter in it. So then over here we have Ruth again. So Ruth it's coded twice right in the center of this picture that we drew. And then we've got Obed in a 49-letter skip. We have got Jesse in a 49-letter skip. We got David in a 49-letter skip. Then we got Perez. So we got Judah and Tamar had Perez, Boaz, Ruth, Obed, Jesse, David. So it's telling us it's from the book of Ruth, and Ruth is the one who marries Boaz. These are all in 49-letter skips, or in other words, every 50 letters. So if you were to count this whole top line, it's 49 letters, and then this is the 50th. Isn't that incredible? So the book of Genesis was written hundreds of years before the book of Ruth. Remember, I showed you this. So just highlighting this real quick. Genesis 38 was written hundreds of years before Ruth came into the picture. So it's like God knew what he was doing from the beginning. He was declaring the end from the beginning. But isn't that something else, guys? Isn't that amazing? This is so cool. This is so cool. Not only that, Tamar played the harlot. I mean, and this was the genealogy of Christ. I mean, that speaks volumes of our Father. In Matthew, we have this genealogy right here at the beginning here. I'll make it a little bit different so you can see it. But it says, Tamar, Judah begot Perez and Zerah by Tamar. So there's your harlot there with Tamar. And then Rahab was a harlot. And Ruth was a Gentile bride. David, it says, who had been wife of Uriah. So David with Bathsheba. There's some more adultery going on. I mean, wow. So it shows the grace of God as well. What else did I have here that I wanted to share? Yeah, I did want to say something else too. And in Ruth chapter 4, Boaz wasn't the next of kin. He had to go to the close relative. So he says, now Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the close relative of Boaz had spoken, came by. So this close relative wasn't named, and he was the one that essentially declined to be the kinsman of Ruth. And when you decline to be a kinsman, you take off your shoe or your sandal, and the person's supposed to spit in your face. That's according to Deuteronomy 25. Maybe I'll pull that up real quick for you so you can see that. So according to the law, if you decline being a kinsman redeemer, you're supposed to take off your shoe and say, I don't want to do this. So then his brother's wife shall come to him in the presence of the elders, remove his sandal from his foot, spit in his face, and answer and say, so shall it be done to the man who will not build up his brother's house, and his name shall be called in Israel, the house of him who had his sandal removed. So removing the sandal is declining the to be a redeemer. And so that's what he's done. He declines it by taking off his shoe. So verse 7, now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging to confirm anything. One man took off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was a confirmation in Israel. Therefore the close relative said to Boaz, buy it for yourself. So he took off his sandal. And so in theory, Ruth was supposed to take his sandal off, but he took it off himself and gave it to Boaz. So by doing this, this guy was passing on the redemption, and so Boaz ended up saying, okay, I'm going to marry this woman. So the cool thing about this guy is, I think that Boaz represents Christ, Ruth represents the church, the Gentile church, and the close relative represents the law. See, we can't be saved by the law. And the law also talks to us about Moabites. There's a verse in Deuteronomy, I think it's 23. Let me see if I can find it. An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. None of his descendants shall enter the assembly of the Lord forever. So in the law, it's like the Moabites were rough. They were not a group that were really looked highly to. So this guy that I think represents the law, that has no name, the close relative, declines the Moabite. He doesn't want to deal with the Moabite, so he gives the slipper. He probably is very familiar with Deuteronomy chapter 23 with the Moabite, but Boaz, the kinsman redeemer, extends favor and grace. He doesn't have to marry Ruth. He doesn't have to do this, but he does. He marries Ruth, the Gentile. And because he marries Ruth, the Gentile, he's able to inevitably graft Naomi back in and have a future line for her. And so I believe that Naomi represents Israel. And so because of the marriage of the Gentile, now Naomi can be restored as well. What a cool story we've got in the book of Ruth. And it's all surrounding the Feasts of Weeks. Isn't that something? There's so much more I can say, and I'm going to talk more about this, but I wanted to get really, ultimately, the purpose of this video was to get this image in your mind. Every 49 letters spells Boaz. Every 49 letters spells Ruth, and then it does it again over here. So this is actually Ruth, and then this is really like from this Ruth to this Ruth, it's one short. So it's like 49 letters, or in other words, 48 in between. Whereas these letters to this letters is Boaz. So Boaz, Ruth, Obed, Jesse, David. That's the order that it's written in Ruth. That's the order of the genealogy, how it played out. It came from Tamar and Judah, who had Perez, who was noted in Ruth. So Ruth chapter 4 points us back to this very chapter where we see the genealogy in Ruth written. How about them apples? You can't figure this out in any other translation. This is God's original language. This is so cool. These are the gems that you just can't miss up on. So we are waiting for the rapture of the church. Don't know when it is, but I absolutely love the typology that we find in Ruth. We're going to study as we go here and learn more about God's plan and celebrate how cool he is and how much deliberate design he has in his word. Every jot and tittle will be fulfilled. That's what Jesus said. So I live by faith, and I believe that it will. I believe that every jot and tittle is very critical and very important. And it's going to take a lifetime to figure this out. Come, Jesus, come. Go, Jesus, go. I pray that you believe in the finished work of what Yeshua, your Redeemer, did for you, because he wants you to become his Gentile bride in a spiritual sense. Okay, guys, one day closer. See you soon. Bye.